In the crowded mess hall of Fort Daring, laughter and the metallic clatter of trays filled the air. Soldiers huddled in groups, trading stories and teasing one another after a long day of drills. But at one corner table, far from the noise, sat a young woman in a gray t-shirt and plain fatigues, quietly eating her meal. Her eyes were calm, her posture straight, her movements disciplined, but something about her presence made people glance twice and look away. What city are you watching from today? If this story resonated with you, hit subscribe for more real stories about extraordinary people. Her name was Emily Hart, to most of the base. She was just a transfer, a quiet logistics assistant, sent temporarily to help with record keeping. But that wasn't the truth. Not even close. The truth was classified. Emily was a Navy SEAL, one of the few women to have completed the brutal training pipeline, serving under missions that would never appear in public reports. But here she was undercover, observing internal discipline and the chain of command at Fort Daring, a joint operations base that had started showing cracks in respect and unity among its soldiers. That day, she wanted nothing more than to finish her soup and leave unnoticed. But fate, as always, had a way of testing patience. Across the room, 5 soldiers from the infantry unit, loud, confident, and a little too comfortable, noticed her sitting alone. "Hey, new girl," one of them called out. "You lost or just allergic to people?" The others laughed. Emily didn't look up. She kept eating, slow and calm. That irritated them. "Maybe she thinks she's better than us," another said, leaning back in his chair. "Look at her, posture straight like she's on parade." "Maybe she's one of those officers' assistants," the third snorted. "Or worse, Navy support. You know how they act." 5 pairs of eyes were now fixed on her table. She could feel it. But she stayed quiet. The first soldier, a tall sergeant named Davis, stood up and walked over. He slammed his tray on her table. "You deaf or just rude, Private?" Emily lifted her gaze slowly. Her eyes met his, calm, unreadable, but sharp enough to cut through the arrogance standing before her. "Neither," she said softly. "Just eating." Davis smirked. "You'll fit right in here, sweetheart. But let me give you a piece of advice. Respect goes both ways. You don't ignore your seniors." "I don't ignore anyone," she replied. "But respect isn't demanded. It's earned." A ripple of laughter came from the other soldiers. "Oh, she's got a mouth," one said. "You sure you're not in the wrong uniform, sweetheart?" Emily returned her gaze to her plate. "Pretty sure." Something in her tone unsettled Davis. He didn't like it. Not the words. Not the calmness. "All right then," he said, leaning in. "Let's see what you're made of. You talk big. Let's hit the training mats tomorrow. Little friendly sparring. You game?" Emily's spoon clinked gently against the bowl. She set it down, looked at him, and said quietly, "If you insist." That night, word spread around the base. The new girl from logistics was going to spar with 5 infantry soldiers. Most laughed it off. An easy victory, they thought. Just a bit of fun, a reminder of the pecking order. But among a few, curiosity stirred. There was something about her, the way she moved, the way she held her silence, the faint scar under her left wrist, that didn't fit a desk job. The next morning, the training hall was crowded. Even a few officers stopped by to watch. Emily stood barefoot on the mat, dressed in simple PT gear. The 5 soldiers stood across from her, grinning and whispering to one another. "You ready for this?" Davis asked. Emily nodded once. "All right," the instructor said, half amused. "Standard unarmed sparring. Tap out if you're done. Let's keep it clean." They circled. The first soldier lunged, aiming to grab her shoulder and push her off balance. He didn't even see her move. One step aside, one twist, and he was on the ground, gasping for air. The room fell silent for a heartbeat. The second soldier came in fast, swinging. She ducked, hooked his arm, used his momentum, and sent him rolling. 2 down. The laughter was gone now. The third and fourth came together, one aiming high, the other low. She sidestepped, trapped one arm, twisted, and used a precise strike to disarm both without causing real harm. It was efficient, controlled, professional dot by the time Davis stepped forward. Everyone was watching in stunned silence. He took a breath, squared up, and lunged. He was stronger, heavier, but his movements were predictable. Emily waited, then countered with a move that sent him tumbling flat on his back. For a moment, he just lay there. Stunned dot, she stepped back and offered her hand to help him up. He hesitated, then took it. Her grip was firm, but respectful. The instructor finally spoke, voice low and measured. "Private Hart, where did you learn to move like that?" Emily glanced at him, then at the silent crowd. "Naval training," she said. "Naval?" He repeated. "As in Navy?" "Yes," she said softly. "Special operations." The words hung in the air like thunder. The 5 soldiers exchanged looks. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Special ops." "You mean?" Emily nodded. "I'm with the SEALs. Temporary assignment here." The room went utterly silent. Even Davis, who'd been smirking all morning, took a small step back. A wave of realization rippled through the group. The woman they mocked was one of the most elite operators in the entire military. Emily gave a small nod to the instructor, then turned to lead the mat. But before she could step out, Davis spoke again, not with arrogance, but with humility. "Ma'am," he said quietly, I didn't know." "I'm sorry." She paused, turned slightly, and said, "Now you do. Don't judge people by what you think they can't do. You might be standing next to someone who's carried more than you'll ever imagine." He nodded. Understood. In the days that followed, the tone of the entire mess hall changed. Soldiers greeted her with respect, not out of fear, but because they'd seen what real discipline looked like. Emily didn't flaunt her identity. She still sat in the same corner, still ate quietly, still helped wherever she was needed. But now, people approached her, not to mock, but to learn. One afternoon, Davis came to find her. He stood awkwardly for a moment before sitting down across from her. "You were right," he said. "Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn. Thank you for showing us that." Emily smiled faintly. "You earned it too, by admitting when you were wrong." That evening, as the sun set over the base, she walked past the training field, watching the same soldiers practice with renewed focus. There was no mockery, no pride, only quiet determination. And that, she thought, was the real mission. People would forget her name. They'd forget her face. But they'd remember the day 5 soldiers learned what humility looked like and how respect was never about rank, but character. She left the base a week later. Orders classified as always, but long after she was gone. Her story lingered, retold in whispers among the new recruits. As a reminder that greatness often hides behind silence. What did this story make you feel? Subscribe to Soul Relief Stories for more real stories that heal the heart.